Well, welcome, Joao Carlos. It's really very, very good of you to join us at this DLD Future Leaders Program. And as you know, what we try to do is bring together people from government, from business, from civil society, current and future leaders, around to try and encourage a productive dialogue around strategic development challenges. And we have a big focus this week on development banks. You have this long, rich career professionally, working amongst other organizations with the Brazilian National Development Bank, BNDES, but also as a researcher. And I wanted to ask you first, what factors you think most contribute to making a national development bank relevant and effective?
It's a set of factors, no? But before, I would like to thank, the invitation that you put forward to me. And maybe one of the factors that makes a institution or development institution relevant is its capacity to promote dialogue with the society. So this is very much, especially with the leaders. So it's very much, I would say that what you promoting here is the seeds and the basis of what constitutes a development institution relevant. So the capacity to interact with the society, especially because development is not a linear process, and the finance of development has positives and not as much positive. So there are positive and negative externalities. So basically, one of the big challenges that a development finance institution has is to deal with the inherent contradictions of development processes, and to have technical staff, executives, and leaders that are capable to face the inherent contradictions of development, especially in societies, developing societies, is a major asset. So this is, I would say that this is very important. The second factor is that in a country or a region that has a development finance institution, is that the political leaders recognize their relevance and sustain priority on the actions that the state implements to that institution. So political priority is a factor. The third factor, I think, is any financial institution is bound to be affected by factors of scale and scope. Yeah? They are a major differential to make an institution relevant. But the scale and scope, in terms of size or the portfolio of instruments that an institution operates with, it is limited to the extent of the market or the demand or the ambience and the characteristics of that. So a development finance institution in a country of a smaller size relatively to a bigger size, or the level of development of that institution or of that region or country will make a difference. So scale and scope, but respecting the characteristics and the challenges of a given society. The following factor that I cannot fail to mention is the capital base and the funding base of that institution. That is, you cannot promote any development initiative if you do not have a very strong capital base that will make you capable of sustaining successes and failures, because not always the initiatives that you put forward, they are 100% successful. So to have a strong capital base capable of resisting uncertainties and failures is important. And stable funding, because the last thing that you want is to push an initiative that raises expectations and then you are not capable of supporting or funding that. And the last, I think, that is the capabilities. Capabilities of people, capabilities in terms of the financial institutions nowadays depend essentially of information technologies. So capabilities in terms of your technical base, the instruments, the software, the digital equipment that you operate with, it's essential. I think that within the capability framework, the technical autonomy of an institution that is respected for. So they receive a political or a policy directive to support a given field or set of projects, and they must have the autonomy to say this project goes and this project does not go, and not accepting the influence of an external agent to say you have to push forward that project for reasons that go beyond its capacity to.
So there's no real strategy without that autonomy then?
Yes. So, and the final thing I think is on the capability level is collective decision. Yeah, I think that collective decision and the technical autonomy are the very powerful instruments to mitigate any type of negative influence that one can have on a public institution. So, you know, no one is responsible, the collective is responsible for some initiative. I think this is more or less what I think that would make an institution relevant, and not only, you know, the financial development financial institutions, but a public institution in general. Yeah.
Yeah, that's extremely interesting, and I think I'd like to pick up on two or three of those things. One thing you mentioned was this capacity to make failures. Things don't always go well. We're very interested at DLD in, you know, failures from which one learns nothing and failures from which one sometimes learns quite a lot. And I like to ask people, you know, what was your greatest failure? Greatest in the sense of what was an experience, perhaps at BNDES or somewhere else in your career, where things didn't quite go to plan, but there was a learning process that generated new insights, new ways of doing things that is worth remembering.
I think that failures occur when an initiative does not have the fit, and I'll explain what the fit is, for what it was designed for. And the fit may be in terms of not being able to design what you're going to do. Yeah, your targets are not clear. It's more desire than actual a potential demand that you want to induce. So the fit in terms of not having the adequate instruments for that goal or mission or challenge that one is given the task to go for. More complex initiatives, like sustainable related initiatives, relatively for an institution to promote a given product or a factory, which is very localized. When you go for the sustainable, one swallow or one instrument does not make the summer. So many initiatives require not only the financial instrument, but also other policy instruments that if they are not coordinated in time, and don't ask me how these things happen, there is a probability of failure. And when this happens, you just go, wow, yeah? And so policy coordination is a major source, or policy de-coordination, or lack of coordination, is a major source of failure. Of course, political interference. Not pertinent political interference in terms of not, the political interference is very valid when they give you a directive. You should go. But political interference when they try to participate on the nuts and bolts of a process, oh. And there are cases of this. I participated in one case where there was an attempt at the Brazilian Development Bank to bring a sort of a multiple stakeholder governance for a certain challenge area. And when we set up this multiple stakeholder, some of the members of the society, they wanted to choose the projects. And we had to go through a long process of convincing them that their role would be to define the strategy and put the priorities, but that the project evaluation should not be interfered by someone from abroad, because they do not have the skills and the knowledge and the practice of going through a process of project evaluation, which has to be collected by the technical staff. And I think that if one thinks of failures, there is one element that is important, is you can be successful in time one, and you can be a bit less successful in time two, but maybe time three, you are less successful. That initiative had a time span, a limited time span, and the institution or the policy directives do not recognize that it should have a short time span and you should get out. So to prolong, to extend beyond a certain period may be a run. And the problem of this is that when you take a decision in time one, and this decision will ignite a process of things. You're supporting beneficiaries, but you do not have an ex ante and sound knowledge of what that additional impact will be in the future. So there is a lot of discussion that now everything should be monitored and evaluated, and you should only support those things that bring additional, but you can only evaluate additionality ex post, and you're taking the decision ex ante. So it takes a lot of perception and knowledge to be able to actually take a decision and be bold enough to say, that's it, without having the total information on that. And the last is, and maybe I'm just going for too long, it's the desires and realities, yes? the desire to do good, the desire to promote development, the desire may induce an institution to go over the board relatively to the reality of not only the capacity of that institution, but also the absorptive capacity of this system, economic system for that. So desires and realities is just...
It's a very Hirschman-like point about the over-optimism that leads to many projects. That's fascinating. A lot of what you've talked about and what you mentioned explicitly earlier as well brings us to the issue of the capabilities of organizations, but of individuals now. You've been learning over the last 2-3 days. We've got a great bunch of people from around the world with us who are very smart, emerging leaders, let's say, or hope. And I'm wondering what you think they need, what capabilities they particularly need to convert that cleverness that they have and experience into being really effective in these institutional contexts. Because you can be very smart, but that's not the same as really knowing how to implement, how to get over these hurdles.
This calls for a reflection of, the individual within an organization and how can you contribute to a simple or even a very complex institution. It's not simple. And the discussions that we had, it was permanent, the issue of the lack of capabilities, of state capabilities to design and implement things. And many times, and I'm reflecting here on the moment that Brazil is trying to push a sustainable agenda as the reference for an industrial policy. And this is not simple. And one of the elements, because it calls for coordination, concertation, different institutions, different issues, different instruments. And one of the issues I think that is essential is the individual capacity to build up a network of complicity. Yeah? And in most of our nations, the institutionalization of concertation is not defined. So it depends very much on networks of individuals that have a chemistry among them, that they respect each other, and that they can build the beginning of a process of designing something that can be done. So complicity, searching for people that could have the same dreams and the same attitudes of you, I think is super essential.
So those capabilities, they're not just individual properties, they emerge through relationships.
Relationships, yes. And this is, so, and once you have a set of established relationships, and in the beginning they are going to be very personal based. The capacity to set up and develop projects so that you have something, but something that is designed, that is readable, that then you have an instrument, you have a product to sell, and then build up your complicities around that. And I think that even if you are not able to sell your project, a collective will be successful because they can learn from their mistakes, they can learn from that experience and build another project.
So I think
And
you were saying a couple of days ago, you know, in our sessions that you can win even when you're losing.
Yes, yes. And it's very learning based. So learning process, and the more that is collective, wow. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Joao Carlos. That's been very interesting conversation. I'd love to carry it on a lot longer, but we have a time constraint. So thank you so much
for opening this space. And I think that you have a project, and I think that you should carry on with this project. And especially because you are in an institution and with the supportive organizations that is able to bring different people. So to bring different people and potential leaders, wow, this is so good.
Let's hope. We're enjoying it.
Thank you.
Thank you.